right, everybody. It's Coach Mike McKay here. I am excited to have David Price on the show with us today on Success Chronicles. David is the founder of, how do you exactly say your company? I was
Avenue
looking at
Systems.
it yesterday. Go ahead.
Avenue Systems.
Avenue Systems. I just wanted to say Avenue Products for some reason. David is a father of four, which is super exciting. Enjoying the fatherhood journey outside of work. He likes to do child things like all head of big families do, as well as going to the gym. So, David, it's my pleasure to welcome you on the show today. Tell us a little bit about your personal journey, your personal story. Where were you born? What kind of family did you get to grow up in? Things like that.
Sure. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, the story is I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. But yeah, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, but I also moved around a ton, which kind of gave me this weird chameleon capability. But I think all in all, I went to 14 different schools between kindergarten and 12th grade. So,
My gosh.
because normally what would happen is my dad was part of a large nonprofit organization, and he would go to basically um, these failing places where they had gotten themselves into a big financial rut. He was kind of
Gotcha.
a Mr. Fix It, but then he also loved investing in real estate. And so, we'd live in a place for a year or so, but we might even live in two or three houses. So it was an interesting childhood of always being around someone that was really good with money, but also had a really entrepreneurial mindset, who was always investing in real estate. And then got to help him out with a ton of his projects, and whether we were rehabbing an old El Camino or rehabbing a house or moving on to the next city was kind of an interesting path. I ended up actually going to Bible school, getting a music degree, and actually worked on
Oh,
staff at a church for a long time in Florida. And it was very large, what most people kind of categorize as a mega church. It kind of became, I was on staff. The title kept changing as the role progressed, but ended up helping out with quite a bit of the organizational aspect of what we did from a systems background, and then also oversaw tech and technology and all that fun stuff. And that kind of led me to working off, and of course, there's a whole process getting married and having kids. And my wife came with some student loan debt along with the terms of marriage. It was in there somewhere. So I ended up doing quite a bit of side work, just to bring in extra income. I would take vacation and go do a project, go do some work for a friend, or go on a small tour and travel with somebody, an audio mix or engineer. And eventually, what happened was my side gig kind of grew a life or legs of its own.
very
Never intended to start a business, but eventually got to the point where I had to kind of leave all of my other career work and just kind of take this on full time. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's where I come from and kind of how I got started in a very broad overview sense.
So do you remember what happened to you and what caused that jump from, hey, I got to leave all my other work behind and my side gig's going to become like the primary thing that I do now? Like what
Sure.
happened? What kind of events kicked that off?
Well, part of it was family related. So my wife is from the Midwest. At the time, we were living in Orlando, Florida, and although it's a great place to live for AV, there was a lot of things that wanted to kill you outside, and it didn't necessarily feel like a fun place to have the kids outdoors. And so, but as the kids got to school age, we knew we wanted to move back to the Midwest.
Okay.
And so we ended up landing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And luckily, the way it was working with my business, my first project was in Orlando. Second project was in Tampa, so that one kind of made sense. But then my third project was in Seattle. So kind of always from the start was kind of a national company, kind of working wherever the work was. So I could really live anywhere as long as I was near a decent sized airport. So and that was really the big motivating factor. It was family related, but then also business was doing good enough that I felt like we could make the jump. And so we ended up moving up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and just going for it full time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit more about what Avenue Systems actually does.
sure. So we're kind of in a niche of a niche of a industry. The AV industry overall is very large,
Hmm.
but a lot of the AV companies out there tend to do a lot of corporate work, tend to do a lot of conference rooms, boardrooms, ballrooms, and hotels. There's just so much of that work available. I come from performance venues, both my work in the church world and then some touring work. I've always specialized in large performance spaces. So the big sound systems that you hear at concerts, the big lighting rigs, the big sets, big shows. That's always been my cup of tea, and that's kind of a niche aspect of the industry. There's only a dozen or so concert venues, probably per smaller city, and then there's a lot of churches that could fit the category of a performance venue. But that's kind of what we specialize in. But we also do it from the build process. So from a new construction standpoint, a lot of our largest customers are building a new church campus or building a new concert hall or a new meeting hall or event space. And we specialize in working alongside the architects and the engineers, the electrical contractors and engineers to make sure that not only do we have all the right power, conduit, and infrastructure, but we also do semi-architectural work like calculating BTUs for the AV system so that the HVAC mechanical engineer can design HVAC systems that are appropriately designed for the space. And so it's a big collaborative mess of bringing together hundreds of SKUs and thousands of part numbers into a cohesive system that works for the space and to make sure that the space itself is designed well for that use.
Yeah. I mean, most
Yeah.
of us just want to push the on button, but it sounds like there's a few more details to
Well, at
have
the
a
end of the
well
day,
designed.
we can make it work with one on button.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long, tedious process. So a lot of our projects can take up to a year and a half, sometimes 2 years to complete from start
Well,
to finish.
cool. All right. What's your biggest learning been so far as a business owner as you put all these pieces together from all over the country?
Man, staff are expensive. When the business finally got, especially when you're in a niche business like we are,
Yeah.
there's not a huge talent pool to choose from, and a lot of the guys that are in this space, we all kind of know each other, and it's a pretty small run of things. But no, it's staffing was probably the hardest thing to kind of get over that initial hurdle. Even when the company was starting out, I never intended to start a business. It was always just a side gig, and
Yeah.
then it was great when I could do it on my own, and I thought that was going to be the thing that I'd stay at, just always be an independent AV guy. But then it became too much work for me to handle on my own. So hiring staff, adding staff, learning how as a small company you can still not only attract top talent, but also keep top talent, how you can reward your people and provide them meaningful benefits, which is not always easy to do as a smaller business.
Right.
Giving them enough of a reason to stay and motivation to feel like they're cared for, that I've got their back, to where they really put in their best effort for what we do as an organization. But managing those costs and those expenditures are crazy. Our largest expenditure by a long shot is payroll and
Sure.
benefits. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, not uncommon in the business world. So unless you're, especially in a service business, like you guys are, gathering, you know, pieces and parts and doing like, sounds like pretty hardcore engineering on BTUs and how much cooling there needs to be for those systems. But people are always, the upside is they're also the magic. They're the
Sure.
ones that actually make us money and things like that. So what's been your biggest challenge? And as you think about that, who did you have a fellow business owner, a colleague that kind of kept shoving you and hoping you get through that challenge?
So a lot of the challenge was not coming from a business background. I had the entrepreneurial mindset, but my dad always doing what he did. It was always still a one man thing. It was never, building a team. How do you build out an organization? How do you set up management for that organization and manage your people well? So basically, the general back end of running a business and all the complexity that comes with it, especially when you're a smaller organization that works
Sure.
nationally in a niche industry, it was just a lot. And so there's not a whole lot of people because the industry that I'm in is pretty niche and small. There's also a lot of competition. They're not always the most collaborative bunch. But yeah, what I was able to do was hook up with some people that were able to mentor me and help out, whether they realized it or not. I would often buy people lunch. So just so happens, for example, one of my neighbors just happened to be like a project manager for IBM. And I was
Right.
trying to figure out exactly how best to equip my project manager and managers to do their role effectively and do it well. So I had lunch at least once a week with my neighbor, just picking his brain on business and how IBM operates and He didn't share anything proprietary, I hope, but but learning how other companies do it and
Uh,
do it well. I was also able to find some fellow AV business owners specifically that we get together for lunch once a month or so, and just kind of talk shop. Some of them are smaller than us, some of them are larger than us.
sure,
I tried to find some AV companies that didn't consider me competition. So two of these organizations specifically that I meet with here in town, they mostly do that corporate conference room hospitality market. And so because we don't have a lot of overlap there, it's very easy to sit down, talk shop, and not feel like you're trying to get information out of a competitor.
sure. So what's the next big thing for Avenue Systems? What's on your upcoming radar and growth and 1 to 3 year focus areas?
Sure.
Get your kids out of school, I would imagine. Your kids are as a young family.
Oh goodness. Yeah, sometimes I feel I'm just surviving. I'm sure we all feel like that sometimes. But no, with 4 kids especially. No, the next thing for us is it's definitely poised to be a growth year. Last year, we actually did something that's probably not smart for a business. We intentionally tried not to grow. We knew that we had outgrown, because the year before that we had grown by over 40%. It really strained our people. A lot of people were
Sure,
overworked. A lot of our systems were truly tried and tested, and a lot of them needed some solid refinement in order for us to do what we wanted to do on a good level and not burn out our staff and not burn out our business in the process or grow too fast. So
sure.
last year we only grew by about 5%. So we weren't able to totally stop growing, but we're able to
We weren't.
definitely throttle it
Please
to the
never
point
say that again. We weren't able to stop.
where we weren't. I mean, I didn't want to like shrink in revenue,
Yeah. I mean,
but
we call
5%.
it grow plateau, right? You experience that big jump
Mhm.
and then realize like, business is a pyramid. The foundation eventually is going to hold it up. When you're
Yep.
growing really fast, the freaking pyramid seems to invert itself and, business processes get wiggly. You have to deal with it like you did,
Yep.
right? You have to address it. Otherwise, businesses can literally fall over. So, but there is a actual saying for that. It's grow plateau, grow plateau.
Well,
So
last year was a plateau year. This year, whether we like it or not, is definitely going to be a grow year. I hope it doesn't grow as much as I think it will. But right now, we're already up about 15% over last year's revenue. And then the problem is we have two contracts that potentially could come up that would not only give us very regular, consistent annual revenue, but a very consistent annual revenue that's quite large. The one contract would be potentially our largest contract to date.
exciting.
That was in multiple states and uh, different venues. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's once again just managing the growth. So already trying to figure out how to staff the next phase of growth for us this year. Should be fun.
Two questions left for you. One is if you could give one piece of advice to people on the business ownership path, what would that be?
Hmm. Only one. That's a tough one. Um, I mean, for me, it's always been about perseverance. And if I could pass on one bit of advice, I feel like a lot of young entrepreneurs, they might have the itch of entrepreneurship, but it's one thing that maybe isn't taught as much anymore, or maybe not taught well, is resiliency and being able to push through. If you've got a good idea, you got a good concept, you got a good business plan, it's not enough just to have that. You have to be willing to do it long enough and hard enough for luck to eventually hit. Luck's just a matter of time, not necessarily a magic wand you wave over something. It's can you persevere to the point to where luck actually has a chance to strike.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
And I have one question that I didn't prep you for. That is there something you wish I would have asked you? Part of your story that I didn't ask you about that you'd like to share with people?
Oh man. No, not really. I don't think so. I mean, can't think of anything off the top of my head. Um,
Well,
yeah,
David, you've been on the classic entrepreneur journey, so thank you for sharing some of your insights with us on the Success Chronicles, and good luck with this growth year.
appreciate it. Thank you.